Well, howdy guys, welcome back to the city. I'm Imperial Jedi. Today we're going to be doing a bit of a focus on public transportation, more specifically buses and trams. So the city itself, I've grown it, like I said I would, between last episode and this one. I'm going to include some before and after shots, just so you guys can kind of get an idea of what the city used to look like, how it looks now. So I've just been doing a little bit of building here and there, just kind of tinkering around with some of the side streets and this and that. So I'll show you a little bit of what I did. Then I'll just kind of show you the the before and afters. But yeah, the city it's big, it's ready. It's we're basically ready for public transportation. And I'm going to be making a few videos geared towards public transportation. The first one, like I said, is going to be buses and trams. The next one after that is going to be metro lines, so like subway, metro, as well as trains. And then later on down the road, when we unlock it, I'm going to be doing, harbors and airports. So expect those for later on, so subscribe for that kind of thing. But for now, let's do some trams and some buses. So I'll go over some of the basics, just kind of my thought process on why I would do certain things, and just kind of getting the city essentially this size, up and running, without, going too much into the negatives, essentially. All right, so I've been saving our money. We got lots right now, so we can go on a spending spree. I got our population to, just over 10,000, which is at or around more or less the point where you want to start introducing transit. You don't want to do it too early because it's going to be pretty hard on your budget. And what I'm going to do is upgrade some of the roads. We'll put in the trams first, and again, I'll just kind of go over my logic and why we're doing certain things. Maybe we can go from this view. So what I want to do is just give us a nice big box for one of the tram lines. And you kind of have a few options with trams and buses in terms of how the lines are going to go. So I will show you both options. You can basically have a line that falls back on itself, or you can have two lines that kind of run in, as a team essentially. So it looks like I'm going to have some issue here because I placed a police station. I'm using some mods to kind of get over this kind of stuff. It does kind of throw off my zoning, so I'm going to fix all that after, but just in case you guys are wondering what the heck I'm doing right here. And for those of you that are new, I have some videos leading up to, basically the construction of all of this. So if you want to see how this place was built, definitely check that out. And I did skip a little bit over just to kind of get from last episode to this one, like I said I would, but nothing too crazy, just got us over here. Okay, and so for those of you that do follow along with the series too, after we do this little episode here on public transit, I want to grow the city a little bit more, so we're going to do some high density. So stick around for that too. Okay, so I'm just basically making a little box shape with our trams here, and it's a little bit unique here going through the roundabout. So I'll show you guys a couple of options for this. What we could do is we'll take our tram only tracks. We could draw a straight line like this. It does create a traffic light. So if you're getting small volumes of traffic, no one really will mind the traffic light too much. If you have a traffic mod, I suggest taking the traffic light out just to make things run a little bit quicker, a little bit more smoothly as well. If you wanted to, and I just know from experience because of the way these roads kind of come in, I have to delete these. If you wanted to, as another option, I'm going to put those in obviously right afterwards. We're going to upgrade. We got our one-way road here. We're upgrading the roundabouts so that it incorporates the tram tracks like that. So if you're not using a traffic mod and then you want to avoid the traffic lights, this is basically what you're going to do instead. And then we're just going to reattach, what am I looking for here? These highways. Perfect, just change that direction. Excellent. So just two options. Bada bing, bada boom. I personally find that this is a little bit faster because the trams have to make kind of a tight turn. They're blocking a little bit of lanes, that kind of stuff. So I think what we're going to do is change this back to the 3-lane. And that's just how this was with the mods. So if you don't have these, don't worry. I will include a mod list too. So if you are kind of new and you're wondering where all these mods are coming from, what the heck's going on here, I do have a tutorial series starting, but we use mods. So if you want, I've got a list for you. If you want to avoid them, it's totally no problem too. You don't need them. Anyway, so what we're doing is just a basic box shape here with our tram line, and then that way we're gonna have a tram kind of going through, and it's going to be supported by some bus lines, and we're going to encourage some line sharing, that kind of stuff. So over here, just because of the way this park is set up, we have no choice but to go through. So now you guys can kind of see both options in case you wanted to know what that looked like. And just continuing along with this. And so same idea right here. And you do get a handy, like when you look at, oh goodness. Like when you put this down, you can kind of see this view. You can kind of see where the tram tracks are already. So all I'm trying to do is just make ourselves a basic little box. And this is kind of a neat little way right over here how this kind of went through. We could have gone the other way if we wanted to, and we still can. I think I'm actually gonna do a few routes. You'll kind of see. So same idea with over here. I have to use one of these mods to kind of allow me to go through without any collision or any issues. And then all that simply does is it does kind of ruin your zoning squares, and it makes the trees overlap. So sometimes you gotta delete them. I think we're okay though, 'cause I've already gone through and done most of that when I was doing the construction of this, but this should look pretty cool having trams go through. And because of the way it's set up, the vehicles going to the highway are going to bypass the little thing right here, and there's no left-hand turning from the from this bridge thing right here. So we should have pretty fast flow through. So I'm excited to see that in action. Okay, so let's look at our box. Did we complete the whole thing? It looks like we did. Perfect. We're going to need somewhere for our depot to go. Kind of left the spot open in mind. Okay, so we'll put that right at the intersection, because it does create a set of traffic lights, so that's fine right there to kind of use the existing ones. And we do have some room to kind of stretch some, you know, roads around here or something, but in general, I like to leave a little bit of room next to the highways. I find that as the city kind of grows, it's nice to have some space if you want to bring, you know, like maybe an expressway through, or some train lines, or an elevated bus lane or something. Just, and then also, I mean, by the same flip of that coin, nobody wants to live next to a highway. They're very loud, so that's why I kind of encase them in trees, kind of hopefully do a little bit of a sound barrier. But generally, I'll leave myself little corridors open, so kind of keep that in mind for your own city planning. Okay, so we've got the basics of our tram kind of box happening right now. We've got our depot connected. What I'd like to do is a line that kind of works. Remember I said I wanted to do show you guys two options. So we'll do the one option on that box shape, and then I want to have another little spot that just kind of loops back on itself. So we're going to extend our network just ever so slightly, and we're going to take a little bit of a detour. And we're going to head towards this little area here. We'll just loop around back here. Just for fun. Okay. So now we got our depot in place, so we've unlocked the ability to put in some tram lines. And I'm going to start just any old which place. And this is the line that's going to go in a basic box. So I'm not going to do too many stops. Because the trams, they have to stop, and you know, people have to walk over, and so a lot of pedestrians, that kind of activity slows other traffic down, so just be aware of that. Now in terms of spacing, I'm going about 1 or so per block, maybe 1.5 blocks in between. Like, there's no real need to kind of stop everywhere. People can kind of walk. And then so what I'm doing is going this direction, and we're just making sure we're clicking on the right side of the street here. So if we click on the other side, it throws off all the pathing, and then I think you'll kind of know right away if you've done something wrong. Okay, so I'm not going to put a stop here just because it's a little bit of a busier kind of area, right? So we'll put a stop right there. Stop over here. You kind of see just pretty loose spacing. Nothing too hectic here. And then we'll see what the game wants us to do. Because we could go, if we want, and put a stop right here, which I think we're actually going to do. Put a stop right there. And we don't need one underneath here, I don't think. Stop over here by the hospital, and then just complete the line. There, so that's one side of the street. Now this is not overly efficient to leave on its own, because let's say you lived, say you get on this stop, but you want to go over here. That means you got to take the whole way around. I mean, that's not very practical. So what you need is a corresponding line to basically be like the teammate, and it's going to go in the opposite direction. And it doesn't have to take the exact same route, but it should follow more or less the same path. And sometimes you're kind of stuck, maybe you've made some, one-way roads or something like that. So again, just follow the same general path. With us, we have the luxury of being able to follow every single stop, which is very convenient. And then what I have a tendency to do is a uniform fleet color for my entire city. So I like to change the colors of my bus lines and stuff after. So I live in Toronto, and our bus lines and everything, they're red, like it's called the TTC, like the Toronto Transit Commission. So the vehicles are all red, so I put those in because I have some custom vehicles downloaded. So I want to see my own, my own color of my own vehicles. But pick your own color, do whatever you want. You can have your buses be one color, you can have, your trams be another. Just the sky is the limit. So that is now that finished. And then what I'll sometimes do, just so that I don't get lost while I'm planning my routes and stuff, is maybe I'll change these to a really funky color. That way I can kind of see where I need to, kind of interlap or overlap or something like that. Okay, now for another option, different style of tram. This is a line that falls back on itself. Kind of show you guys the difference here. So what I like to do is encourage line sharing. So we're going to overlap the same stops. Like there's no sense making a new stop here. It just adds to all the vehicle traffic. Might as well have the overlap. That way the Sims, they can say take the tram up here, get off, transfer over, and just switch lines. Because you want to encourage that. Otherwise, no one's really going to use your public transit. So we are doing some line sharing here. You want to not do too much of that because it does become a little bit inefficient. I'm just showing you guys this for the sake of just having a little small area, right? Okay, so we're going... Now what we're doing is making a box, right? Sorry, not a box, a little loop back. So we're taking advantage of this little area here. And we fall back on ourselves. That just means this little spot here is not getting, two-sided traffic. We fall back, and we take the exact same route. Oops, looks like we missed one stop. So if you miss a stop, no problem. Just right-click, back it up. If you need to stop halfway through, you totally can. You just, right-click and just pick right back up where you left off. And so we're back over here now. And then to close this off, let's just do the same idea. Just kind of, complete that little box shape. You can do that if we wanted to. There we go. And you can do the same thing with your buses or your trams. The same general idea. Loops or lines that fall back on themselves, or lines that have like a corresponding teammate. And then we're just going to change the color. Bada bing, bada boom. Perfect. And so now we'll put on 3-speed, give ourselves some ideal sunlight. And then businesses, everyone, they love trams. That's a great way to get people to work and stuff, so that's why everyone's, suddenly getting a level up. So public transportation is a great thing for your city. Put it back on 1 speed. You can kind of see I've got some custom trams. So these are the Toronto vehicles I was talking about. That's why I wanted to see these red. Woohoo! That's kind of fun. So the trams, they'll go out and do their thing. We'll just let them. We did see a hit to the budget, which is why you don't want to introduce these a little bit too early. But the goal is to get people out of their cars, into public transit. That frees up the roads for service vehicles, for deliveries, just, non-essential traffic, right? You don't really want people driving around when they have the option for public transit. And then things you can also do is bike lanes, little overpasses with pedestrian pathways, just to get people to not be in their car. Because the way you basically lose this game is if you have too much traffic. And I wouldn't say that's obviously not the way you lose, but you know what I mean. Things kind of fall apart when traffic gets out of control. Okay, so let's do some simple bus routes through our city. And we don't necessarily need to do one of the big bus shelters just yet. I think the city is still a little bit small. If you wanted to, though, you could maybe this early on pick a central location where you wanted your main transportation hub to be, and then you can kind of build everything just essentially based off of that. So if we wanted to, we could do something like that. Say we could even do it right here. So let's do a little brainstorming here. So we need ourselves an area, lots of space. So we'll open this up. We'll put in our, of course it doesn't really, I don't want to say it doesn't fit, but it's not, see we're off by 1 square? That kind of stuff drives me crazy. So of course that has to be the case, right? Oh well. What does it look like on the other side? Okay, maybe we can do that, right? That's not so bad. Alright. And then if we wanted to, we could do like a bus only lane or something, just kind of going around here. And these are also part of a traffic mod. Oh, and you know what? One of the road mods I'm using is going to kind of null and void that red lane. So forget that. Let's make that a regular road, and then we'll reintroduce some zoning back over here. Kind of keep some commercial in that area. So what you can do with a central little bus thing like this is keep it close to your train. So what we can probably do when we do a metro upgrade, or sorry, a train upgrade, is bring a train line in down here and put a train station, say, in this spot. That way we're within walking distance. And then eventually what we'll do is we'll put a metro station, say, right next door, and that way you just encourage line sharing. So if you come in by bus, you can switch over to a tram, you can, you know, hop on the subway. You basically want to make sure it's very easy. Like, picture your own town, right? Like, if your public transit is a mess, you're not going to use it, right? But if your public transit's very efficient, you're loving it. You're absolutely loving it. Why would you pay for parking? Why would you even pay for, you know, driving around with gas and stuff, right? Okay, so we've got ourselves a central bus stop. If you didn't want to do this, we would basically be doing, you know, bus lines just the same way we would do this, right? You do need yourself a depot, and so I tend to put those over in my industrial areas, just anywhere that's kind of loud, because they don't mind. They're loud themselves. Not a lot of room over here, though. Yeah, maybe just toss it up here. Cool. Works for me. Okay. And then the goal of our bus lines is to basically go anywhere that the trams or that the metro or the, you know, anywhere the public transit isn't already going, or you want to have them kind of complement and help. So if I were to put, say, a subway station over here, I would probably have a bus line kind of sneak right next to it, and that would just kind of serve the people there. And then the logic would be the bus brings you, you know, to the subway, and then this and that, right? And then you got on the subway, which is faster. Okay. So let's put in some bus lines. So let's start any old spot over here. We'll just create a new line. And I have a tendency to do that first style where, you know, the buses kind of team up with someone. But we can do some smaller ones, because the city is still pretty small, so we're going to have to change quite a few of these around, I imagine. So what I'm going to do is go on one of the busier roads and just do a basic box as well. And we're going to have a little bit of line sharing, which is totally fine. So right here, there's no stop, so I want to make one kind of close so that people still have the option to kind of walk over. There we go. And it's just usually within 2 or 3 blocks of another transit line, just for maximum efficiency. And so you can see over here, we're getting fairly good coverage. So I might just sneak in, do a little loop, and then start heading back. And then what we could even do, actually, I did say I wanted to make this one kind of the teammate one. So we're going to back this up. And we're instead going to use one of our bypass roads. And then we're going to make a kind of loop over here. So we're going to go like this, down over here. Perfect. And just complete that line like this. And then now, what we're going to do is have one go the opposite direction. And see how convenient it is? These are both still blue. Haven't changed over to red yet. So I'll change my colors afterwards. Or I'll change them to some funky color so it's easier to follow along. Because once you start getting a lot of overlapping lines, sometimes you might be like, oh boy, where was I going? And so this is what I mean. If you need to back up, you know, right click, need to put some new stops in, or if you suddenly want to change some roads around, you know, it's no problem. You can just kind of see that's an incomplete bus line right there, right? So we go back to our bus thing, just click to drag, and then you're back on now. And then if you make a mistake, just right click it, right? So very, very simple. If you panic, you can always just delete the line and start again. Like, that's totally no problem. Okay, so we're going back this way. See how you almost get lost, right? That's why it's good to have the separate colors. And so there we go. And so we'll kind of see what path this wants to take. Seems like it's kind of an interesting one, but it'll do its own thing. That's totally fine. So I'm not going to put stops over here. You know, you'd get off anyway, right? There we go. So that kind of works like that. Let's change our colors around over here. And so we wanted to, let's say, maybe make the buses black. We can make our trams red, just for fun. for no real particular reason, just to mix things up. And then I'll show you guys just options, how you can serve, say, like a little local kind of street like that, right? So this would be a busier kind of bus line, gets you a little bit more action through the city. Let's do some smaller ones here. And the smaller ones have a tendency to use the lines that kind of fall back on themselves. And again, we're just trying to go in directions that there really isn't already public transit. So let's go over here, hit some side streets. And these are the ones I have no particular path in mind. I'm just trying to get a fair amount of coverage. It'd be nice to stop off up here, because that way people taking the bus can now easily switch over to the tram. Tram might be a little bit more efficient route for them to get to work. So just do those kind of things a little bit more often. So maybe what we can do is use this as a transfer point as well. So just something like that. And then when the city grows, oh, that's a tiny little spot. When the city grows, what I'll tend to do is pick one spot that is the central hub. I'll bring all my public transit over there. All the metro lines will go through there. All the train lines, all the tram lines, that kind of stuff. So this might just be like a little mini one. So kind of keep that in mind for your own city. And you don't want to go too crazy because, you know, obviously this adds up to your budget. But the more coverage, the better. So it's this weird catch-22. So let's go down here. And again, I'm just trying to just be maybe 2 or 3 blocks from another form of public transit. Or say I wouldn't really follow the outside of the outside street here, because then there's no one living on this side. Not too efficient. Because the Sims themselves, they will walk a few blocks for public transit. They'll walk as far as it's efficient, if that makes any sense. So if the Sims realize it's more efficient to walk 10 minutes to catch a bus than it is to drive, say 20 minutes or whatever, then they're going to walk the 10 minutes. But just keep that stuff in mind. Okay, so let's now sneak over here. So same idea, let's do a little bit of line sharing. So let's overlap some of these stops right there. And then what maybe we can do is just turn around right over here. And just kind of fall back. Now these routes, they're not overly efficient in how they're planned, and that's semi-intentional, because what I want to have people do is hop on a bus and then transfer over to a tram or transfer over to the subway, you know, or the metro, whatever, or the train, whatever's more efficient. If you wanted to, you of course could do buses as, you know, kind of like an express kind of thing. You don't even have to have trams. But the way I'm kind of setting things up is I want some of that line sharing. I want the buses to be just, you know, like the last form, no, it's the last form of transit. You know what I'm trying to say. I just want buses to kind of pick up people and have them switch over to something else. So not too bad. And then if you wanted to, you could have a bus route that does not at all even connect over here. So let's say we wanted to have something that only is in our industrial area. And you kind of see the bus stops are going to be separate from the trams. They don't lie on the same, they don't use the same tracks or whatever, the same lanes. So if I want, say, a bus little loop over here, I'm going to make sure that we're kind of overlapping a little bit so that people will kind of, say, use these. We'll go like that. And then corresponding on the other side. So that way you come in, transfer, still have the option to get to work. Cool. And then as the city grows, what I'll eventually do is delete these lines and then make them a little bit bigger. And then just keep on going with that kind of idea. There we go. So let's maybe make these that uniform kind of fleet color, put these as black. We got our trams as red. And we are golden. Cool. So there we go. Hope that hopefully helps out. Or there's some, you know, something made sense to you there. And then what I want to do is obviously expand on this. We're going to be doing some more transit episodes, so gearing towards trains and metros, and then, you know, eventually the airports and harbors. So it's just a little bit of an introductory. But yeah, hopefully it was helpful. Now we can watch some of our vehicles in action. I already got some people waiting. So, I mean, these people here, they'd all be driving otherwise. So it's great to see that they're out of their cars, taking public transit. I just love the way it looks, too, to seeing some trams go through the city. I could spend hours just watching this place. Very fun. And custom vehicles, a lot of fun, too. So if you maybe live in a bigger city, maybe someone's already taken the time to create some assets. So take a look in the workshop. You never know what you might find. Because I also have some, for you TTC fans, I also have some of the old GMC fishbowl buses. Here they are, look at that. Ooh, baby. There's some nostalgia right there, right? Good fun. Alright guys, well I hope you enjoyed it. If you liked it, definitely hit the like button and subscribe for some more. And I definitely plan on taking the city very far. So we'll be going the long run with this. And so what I'm going to do with our next little episode is I'm going to grow the city so that we're ready for trains and metro. So if you guys want to stick around for that, that'll be the next episode. It's going to be high density zoning. We're going to be really growing the city. So we're going to buy some new city tiles. You can kind of see we don't really have any tall buildings yet. And I've had a few requests for that. So, you know, stick around. Enjoy some of the other content too. Alright guys, all the best. Happy building. Definitely answer or ask all your questions and I will hopefully answer them. And I'll show you guys, actually before we go, I'll show you guys the little comparison for the before and afters. Alright, so a little bit of movie magic as we leave. Alright guys, take care of yourselves and I'll see you in the next one.